All right, today we're going to be talking about government regulation, contractor licensing requirements, and change administration, how those things affect the home building industry from different perspectives. Here myself, Nick Cardoza, with Mr. Mike Kerper and Brandon Russell. So let's get started. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good, no complaints.
Good.
A little cold out.
Yeah, it's
cold
chilly out. Yeah, it wasn't snowing at all.
Yeah. So, we've been talking about in class recently government regulation, how these things affect home prices specifically and affordability. I was reading an article that actually spiked my interest in this topic a while back, and it was from within the past month from Fox Business that talked about how three major forces are doing the most damage for the home building industry, leading towards the affordability standpoint. And all of them had to do with government regulation. They were restricted zoning, land use barriers, and different financial policies, both local, state, and federal. So when, that got me thinking, what do these costs add up to in the cost of a new home? So it turns out up to 24% of the cost of a single family home is embedded in regulations at all three levels of government.
And is that just all over the U.S. or is that in one particular state?
That's an average for the entire country.
Oh, okay.
Which is really crazy because, almost 30%. I'm sure that's probably a pretty high estimate.
Of just your cost is just going straight to just fees and licensing and everything like that.
Which I guess you really don't, you don't think about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like that gets overlooked a lot. Like people are just worried about the materials, who's doing it, all them type of job costs, but they don't really look into that too much or even think about it.
Yeah, especially during the estimation process. That's a lot of things.
Definitely plays into it a lot.
So what's the government regulations that are causing that part of the cost of housing?
So, those for government regulations specifically, a lot of it comes down to permits, and the time it takes to get these permits and approvals for plans, inspections, and that sort of thing. In the article, it actually talked about how some local governments are intentionally raising costs and slowing the process down because of their lack of desire to want builders to continue to build in their areas, for kind of they don't want things to change. They don't want that sprawl to come to their town or city.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really where that big push starts to come from. And as a builder, we're starting to negatively see that impact us, and more importantly, impact buyers because the price of these homes are going up drastically fast. And so what could we do, you think, to kind of change this mindset of building new homes is not good completely, and how can we change people's minds into bringing this cost down?
I don't know for sure if this is true, but I think I've heard if you want to, it's harder. Sometimes it can be harder to redevelop an abandoned home or a rundown home, try to tear it down and rebuild a new one, than it is to try and then build off of a brand new site. Do you know anything? That's what I've heard, that a way you could possibly get a solution to some of this issue is be the government should, local government should make it easier to, if there are abandoned properties or rundown properties, to not be so strict on the regulating of getting it so you could tear it down and then build a brand new house and have somebody move in there instead of trying to build off a brand new site.
No, I agree. And I think that's, one thing that we talked about this semester.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was in Detroit.
Yeah.
That whole process of going about, buying these lots with either, foreclosed and abandoned houses that are insufficient to live in, and you're able to purchase them at a fairly, low rate, and they want you to build on those properties to kind of, because they know it helps them, especially in a city like that. Doesn't matter how close or far when you're talking about the outskirts of Detroit. I think tax revenue is tax revenue. It helps build better schools, parks. They can use that money for infrastructure in the town. I think having money coming in is great, but I think they also need to work on focusing where the money's going and the distribution. But no, that's a perfect example of, I think, that sort of process.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really good idea. Just refurbishing all the old before you even try and think about purchasing new land. Because if you're just, there's old houses just taking up that space and they really have no use, why would you try and put more houses instead of trying to redevelop an old one that could potentially bring more value to that area, the market, and uplift it? Like you said, it could be better for school systems, the city in general. There's more tax revenue, everything like that. So that definitely is a great idea to do. I feel
But
like.
yeah, but the thing with that is like bigger builders who are gonna build more houses aren't gonna want to do that.
So
So,
it's more like a niche kind of for certain
but
builders.
the government regulations, do they have a bigger effect on bigger builders or smaller builders?
I'd say, majority of the regulation affects smaller builders for sure. They don't have these deep pockets to be able to kind of influence these regulations. And I think you start to see that in a lot of, places closer to big cities, more people, these higher population areas with these big city and town boards.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for that situation, money does talk.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of, persuade a little bit easier,
Mm-hmm.
depending on who you're going up against. But I think it also, negatively affects them. You look at some of these big builders and they come through and totally destroy towns and cities in building these communities with, cheap materials and changing the ways of the land in these certain places. So I think that's kind of what gives people a negative mindset about it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that? These
Yeah,
builders.
yeah, I definitely agree with that because like how you were saying, they develop all these cul-de-sacs and it's pretty much you're just putting up cookie cutter houses. They all look the same. None of them are really unique. So it makes like the city and neighborhood a little bland. Like there's nothing really too exciting or unique about it. And I feel like a lot of cities are against that. Like how you were saying earlier, some states and like cities make it a little bit more difficult to build because they don't want as much building going on because they like how their town or their hometown is now, so they don't want too much to change and a lot of booming, and they don't want the developers to come in and just keep throwing these houses up that really are cheap and all look the same. Like they want to keep their infrastructure similar or not change it too much.
No, I agree. And I think when we go back to that 25 or 24%, of the, of a house, a single family home in America, that percentage that you're paying that is going towards those, regulations, permitting fees and all that sort of thing, you really start to look at, wow, like, what we're putting our money into the town, and obviously the people on these boards, they're getting all this money and they're still unhappy.
Yeah.
So, where's that middle ground? Where can we free something up? Because it kind of creates this frozen housing market, And
Yeah.
so another thing that a couple articles I read talk about is essentially the only way to thaw it out is to roll back some of these financial burdens that you're putting on these builders from the start when it comes to building right away.
Mm-hmm.
An article from the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania showed that from 2013 to 2023, there's a 58% increase in the average cost of a single family home, like a new construction single family home. Which, you talk about 58% in a decade, where are these costs coming from? And half of that 58% is just government regulation costs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of really shines some light on it, and I think a lot of people are uninformed about that, and I think that's something that needs to be talked about rather than overlooked.
So how do you think government regulation could be more lenient in a way that benefits smaller builders, but maybe stricter that would limit
Like safety hazards.
like
and
big
all.
developers?
That's a really good question. I
You know,
think-
like, because that's what we're kind of saying is the issue with government regulation can be the big builders who have deep pockets can work through it or work around it, but then they're the ones who are causing urban sprawl because they're a lot of times developing new land. So if we're talking about like a small builder who could repurpose an abandoned house or do smaller plots of land that maybe are more affordable, like what do you think the regulations could do that would help those smaller builders, like be a relief to the smaller builders, but not allow the bigger builders to still do stuff?
I think if you, and granted, I feel like, I don't know for certain, but when you're buying permits to build 1,000 houses
Yeah.
versus one, there's got to be some sort of deal that these municipalities are cutting these builders.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine, and if I was a big builder like that, that's what I would want
Yeah.
or expect. But I think something like that, you know, what's the word? Like what you said, the vast majority of small builders are the ones who are primarily getting squeezed on stuff like this. I don't know. I don't know what could be done to create a better system.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it would have to do with a dollar amount and
Production.
like number of houses. Like,
Yeah.
if a builder goes to the building department and like with plans to build somewhere, either the number of houses or the dollar amount of whatever that plan is should make it so like it would be like a lower dollar amount. Like nobody can build if they're building over like $5 million worth of houses in one area of like in one development or one area of land, or limit the actual number of houses. Because if you limit the number of houses or limit the dollar amount, then those big builders won't want to do it because it's not as profitable.
Mm-hmm.
But a smaller builder who like it's within his means to do that type of job, to build like 5 houses in a cul-de-sac or something, or build one house in a single lot, you know, if the government could it's kind of like restricting in a way, but it's restricting for the bigger builders and not for the smaller builders, because it's like setting a certain dollar amount where it's like they're not going to approve your plans if you have a development that's over like $8 million or $5 million, but then they will approve plans that are like below that.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that would work.
What do you think about like grants and incentives? Like, you think
Yeah, or yeah.
grants and incentives?
That's not
like,
a bad
hey,
idea.
we don't want no big developers, but you little guys or like small developers, hey, come over here, we'll give you tax credits, or
Yeah.
we'll give you incentives to really want them to take on that job because
Yeah.
it's profitable for them.
Yeah, that's what they should want too, because
Yeah.
these are the people in these small communities.
Mhm.
You know, big builder Joe Schmo LLC. You know, he's owned by a Japanese company or a company that's publicly traded.
Exactly.
You look at something like that, and they're not. Yeah, they're bringing housing
Yeah.
to the community, which generates tax revenue. You know, greater property tax revenue. But what else does it bring?
Exactly.
You know, you get with a smaller builder, you know, who's employing
Locals.
you know, more local communities. You know, not only are the people building the house, you know, subcontracting and stuff, probably in most cases very local, but the builder itself, you know, the general contractor, if you will, is also, you know, he's getting that local money and he's spending that money local.
Exactly. Keeping the money in neighborhood,
In the
in the
communities.
community. Exactly.
We can look into the topic I had, which was contractor licensing. So, I mean, me personally, I'm looking to move out of Pennsylvania and go to like either the Mid-Atlantic area, like Tennessee, Carolina, Virginia area. I don't know. What do you think? Like, are you gonna be in New Jersey, or?
I don't know. I think the Mid-Atlantic region is on fire right now for home building. It seems to be like that's the hot zone where the money's at, based on talking to a few big builders. That seems to be where they're making up the majority of their money, at least, if they are in those areas. So I think that's a good place to go. Mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas right now are super good. You're starting to phase out a little bit of that Tennessee hype from the past, 6 or 7 years. But
But like, you potentially, you would think about moving there?
Yeah, no, I would.
What about, like, are you sticking around Pennsylvania, or are you gonna go?
I'm still putting some thought into it. I'm not really totally sure yet, but if an opportunity definitely presents itself, I would take advantage of it. Like down in that area, I would definitely think about it. I wouldn't just say, nah, that's not for me. I would put some thought into it before I make a decision. But I feel like with PA though, like you really have to be in a big city to really make some money. There's not so much money, like, because not a lot of people are just building in small rural
Right.
towns.
If you want consistent jobs,
Exactly.
you're gonna and like make good money, and like not get stuck doing small remodeling jobs or something.
Yeah.
Like maybe every person has their thing, but if you want to do like mainly new construction, which I would look to get into, and I think it's just easier and I like it better. But
yeah, I feel
then
like
you're gonna have to
yeah,
stick near kind of bigger cities or
exactly.
stuff like that.
Bigger areas where there's more people moving to and where
Yeah.
more jobs are,
Yeah.
where more people are living. I definitely agree with that. But I was definitely, the Carolinas were definitely, like, I was thinking about there. Also, like, down south, like the Sun Belt area a little bit is
Yeah.
really big right now. Like, Texas is always big.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, with all this remote work going on now, everybody doesn't have to be living in a city. They could just live. And a lot of people really like less is more, like how you were saying earlier.
Mhm.
So they want to get away from the big cities and the hustle and bustle, and they want like more of a rural, peaceful, where it's like secluded area, where they have a little bit of land, a nice little community, and local shops nearby, but everybody's not jammed on top of each other.
I think you're starting to see, it's a perfect point because I think the remote work's starting to take people from the Northeast specifically, like, you can live in Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, middle of nowhere, Tennessee,
And still work
And
for a
still
corporation
make-
in New York or something.
still make the New York City, tri-state area money,
Exactly.
but you're not
In the mix of all that.
correct.
But
You're not-
mainly I'm asking that because, like you're from New Jersey, like how much do you know, if you wanted to go back within the next, like if you wanted to go back after graduating and start up your own contracting business, do you have an idea what you need to do? Like, do you need to be licensed? Do you need to be registered with the state? Like, what do you know about contractor licensing in New Jersey?
I think there's definitely a process to it. It's not the strictest, but it's also not the most lenient.
Do you know if you do, like if you want to build houses, be a contractor, like a GC to build houses. Do you know if you need a license
Yep.
to do that?
Yeah, in
You
Jersey you do need a contract
Okay.
license.
Okay. And then,
Along with insurances and stuff.
right.
A lot of places, rural places, you don't.
hmm In New Jersey,
No, in other
Oh,
places.
right,
New
but
Jersey is
as like a
whole-
statewide,
Correct.
if you want to build, like be a general contractor, you need to be licensed.
Correct. It's a very easy process to go about. It's not
Do you
a
have
hard
to take?
process.
Do you know if there's exams?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
I don't believe so though.
But that's kind of my point. Is like you've lived your whole life in New Jersey,
And you don't know.
and you don't know if you were to graduate in May, so next year we'll be graduated. Like you don't even know what you have to do to like okay, I gotta get a license, but what are the steps to get there? Like we haven't learned that in school. Like,
Yeah.
and I think maybe the reason that we haven't learned it is because every state and even in Pennsylvania, every municipality is different with
It is.
what they require for licensing. So maybe in our program, they just thought it was too complicated because they couldn't teach just one way, like one
One state
step-by-step guide to get your license
for overall.
because it's not
Yeah,
going to work
it's
for
always-
overall.
Exactly.
But my point is kind of like, I was asking you if you're going to move to a different state because if you were, then you wanted to have your own business as a contractor, then you'd have to know what you need to do
To
to
get a license.
be able to do your business, but you don't even know like what you need for New Jersey, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in general, not a lot of people do know what to do in Pennsylvania, like whether you need it in Pennsylvania, whether you don't, where you need it, and so I think that's an issue I wanted to kind of bring up about contractor licensing is like it's not very clear even in tech school where we're going, like they're setting us up, like a lot of the programs to set us up to be business owners, to be contractors, but we haven't even really touched much on the steps you need to get there.
And really, that's really the first step. I feel like. That's
Yeah,
like the first
exactly,
step
right.
To even get into business.
Right.
So it's like if you don't know that, you're kind of lost a little bit. You have to seek some advice from somewhere, or just kind of wing it, guess it a little bit, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
It's a really good point though too, because I think, maybe I'm asking you, do you think that leads to more people, businesses, country-wide, like, through the entire country, running businesses that maybe are illegal?
Yeah.
That I'm sure that has a lot to do with an increase in.
For sure. I bet there's there's guys doing construction jobs, building stuff, and they're probably not licensed in a state or town where they need to be. I mean, I've seen like news stories about that, like either contractors who are unlicensed and they were doing work, and eventually they kind of caught up to them because they wronged one of their customers. They did something, you know, they shouldn't have, and then the customer brought it up and realized they weren't even a licensed contractor.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that also leads to the bad kind of rap that, you know, the construction industry gets from a residential standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, you go to put a bid down or give somebody an estimate for something, and they automatically assume you're there to rip them off and do the crappiest job in the world, and you know, take their money and run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's unfortunate that it has become that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of these steps that were skipped, you know, for a lot of people who aren't really either insured or registered with the state, you know, or local governments, that is, you know, a negative byproduct from that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think having, like, requiring companies, contractor companies to be licensed is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it is a good thing. I think it's a good thing from a customer standpoint. I think it's a good thing from a legality standpoint. Mistakes happen, things happen that you don't intend to happen, that you're not planning to happen. So I think if you know, something like that does happen, it shows, maybe it leads down a better pathway for accountability. Maybe it makes customers feel more, you know, secure.
Builds trust maybe, because they
Yeah.
feel like if you're licensed, like you're a licensed professional. Like you're a professional
Once they
in,
hear that licensing, they automatically think, oh,
Right.
he's professional. He's
Right.
got all his paperwork done.
right,
So it is beneficial, but I believe it should be done, but only to a certain extent. Like in some states, it's just so hard. Like it's just a lot of unnecessary steps
right,
to even obtain your license that it's like people would not even want to do it.
And I think that goes back to
To-
government
exactly.
regulation, how it is negatively affecting, you know, the home building industry. How, you know, are we getting the maximum amount of people each year joining the industry or the workforce from a residential construction standpoint? You know, are we maximizing the amount of hands in the industry that we can possibly get? Because, you know, we talked about it in class so many times. You hear, you know, time and time again, the average age of construction workers is fairly old,
Mhm.
and it keeps going up every year. I want to say it's 47, I think now.
Around that.
It's something
Yeah.
around, you know, the late 40s. So, what can we do to help create a system where, you know, you have trust with the customer,
Mhm.
you have trust with an insurance company. You know, you're doing the steps you have to do to, you know, anybody running a business, you know, would have to do.
Mhm.
For taxes and income wise. But how can we make it so that it's effective and easy and less time consuming than it needs to be?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so as I was looking into the topic, there's an organization called NASCLA is the abbreviated name, but it's National Association of State Contractor Licensing Agencies. So, but what they do is they've partnered up with contractor licensing boards in state, like from state to state and even in big cities. And then they've tried to develop like a licensing system and program that's transferable to different states. So like you could go to this organization, NASCLA, and go through their exam process. Like so you take their contractor exam,
I see.
and as long as you pass, that exam is valid for like multiple states because they partnered with the contractor built like the contractor licensing departments and stuff and boards, and through that partnership they said, okay, we look at your exam, how this organization, what content is within those exams, and they accept it as like a valid check of what a contractor's knowledge is, because that's the main purpose of the exams, is like, do they actually know how to read the code book? Like,
Exactly.
do they know where they're at in the country, like what the snow load's going to be, so you don't undersize the ridge, the ridge beam, because I've heard stories about it around here. I think one of our instructors, Maori, he said like there was this one builder or one contractor, and he went around and did like a bunch of, it was either like garages or pole barns or
Yeah.
something, And he said they had a bad snow one winter, and every single one of those garages that contractor built, the ridge it gave out because they had undersized it or something like that. But I guess that's like a thing that being licensed can provide, is like making sure the people that are doing these jobs are qualified, like they're competent people that are going to look into stuff to make sure they're building it the right way. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons. Yeah, I mean a lot of the states that do have the statewide mandates for licensing, they require, one of the requirements to get licensed is that you have, usually it's like 4 years of experience in like a construction management type of role.
Okay.
But they do count a bachelor's degree in like what we have.
Yeah, for tech school.
Yeah, they count that. Some states will count it for all 4 years. Some states will count it for 3 years. So then they just want you to have like a year in the field.
Actual hands-on,
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah. So we're gonna switch the topic over to change in construction administration. So to start it off, we're gonna be talking about why government transitions matter and how policy shifts affect federal, state, and local governments. So one of the major things it affects really is economic policy and funding. So when there's shifts happening in government, usually the funding for residential housing is going to slow down because they don't know what the new administration is going to implement. So you'll see like a decline or a slow in new projects being developed. And also some of the cons of that is also with change in administration, all the grants that used to be in a previous administration sometimes are either completely cut or cut a little bit in a percentage. Because a new administration comes in and says, all right, well, we were building houses here, but really I don't want to worry about the housing market. We could shift it over to this kind of market. So it's always a flux in different administrations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, did you hear about this current administration? They're doing, at least I heard it was like a 50-year mortgage.
I was about to bring that up. Yeah. I've been hearing a lot about it. I actually wanted to bring it up in Jones's class to see what he thought about it.
Yeah.
I forgot to, but I feel like it depends how you look at it. Like, it's definitely benefits and negatives to each side, but when you hear 50-year mortgage, you're like, oh my God, 50 years, you know what I mean? That's a long time paying interest.
Right.
But at the same time, I forget who I heard explain it. It was actually a residential custom home builder who was explaining it and how it's actually more beneficial. So he was pretty much discussing how obviously you're spending less money now, but you're paying more money over time.
Yeah.
And he says, instead of you, say it's saving you $1,500 a month on mortgages, instead of using that $1,500 and putting it into the house, you put it into some type of investment fund that's making your money grow faster than the interest rate on your mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really what you do with the knowledge and like what knowledge you have and what you do with the information that's going on.
Right.
But I haven't really done too much research about the 50-year mortgage. I've definitely been hearing a lot about it, positive and negative things. But what do you guys think about
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I'm just not a big fan of, I mean, mortgages in general, but because you end up paying usually over double
Definitely.
what the selling price of the house was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but millions and millions of Americans do it all the time. Like, that's the standard to do mortgage and stuff and finance.
Especially
So
since
I get it. Like, it's because the monthly payments will be lower. It technically makes the house more affordable to like more Americans. But now in the end, you're going to be paying, instead of paying like double or just over double the sell price of the house, you're probably going to be paying like triple or triple what the actual selling price of the house was. So I mean, I get it. Like, it makes it affordable and attainable to buy a house and get a mortgage, but you're gonna end up paying more in the end. So then it just comes to your personal decision on if that's worth it to you as an individual to, in the long run, be paying for longer and end up paying more, but be able to actually have your
obtain it now.
Yeah, obtain it now.
I feel like,
And like you said, if you are using your money strategically, like, and taking that extra savings that you're not paying mortgage payments, your monthly mortgage payments, and putting it into an ETF or like some sort of investment fund or something like that, then maybe you would be better off doing that.
I feel like you have to have a plan now. You can't just like, if you want it to benefit you, you can't just be like, I'm gonna buy a house and just have it now because maybe the value of the house will go up. I mean, yeah, but still, like you said, you're paying triple what the house is even worth. So
Right.
how much money can you really make from it?
Right.
And it really just depends on your thought process. Like everybody now just wants what they want now,
Yeah.
and they'll just pay the consequences later.
Right.
But there's ways around, like not around it, but there's ways you can do it smarter to make it benefit you definitely as well.
Mhm.
And I feel like how you were talking about how interest rates are so high. I feel like nowadays it's more, especially for our age group, it's more beneficial for us to just rent a property
Mhm.
because, like how you were saying, you want to move down to the Carolinas and everything. So when
Mhm.
you graduate college, your best bet would just be rent a house or
Mhm.
anything instead of trying to jump into a mortgage because really you're not even going to stay in the same spot. So you're probably
Right.
not moving. So I
Right.
feel like the age for home buyers is a little older than our age group. I'd probably say 30s to late 30s is
Mhm.
really what when you start settling down and looking for a home.
Yeah, I feel like the average age of a person purchasing a home, first time home buyer, has gone up. I
Yeah,
saw an
for
article,
sure. Definitely gone up.
I saw an article recently, I want to say it was 38 or something, 37, 38,
Mhm.
which is kind of scary, especially because, say you're 38 years old, middle of the road job, you're not rich, but you get your bills paid and whatnot. You take on a 50-year mortgage, you're almost 40, so
Yeah.
I feel like this could be beneficial maybe for a house that provides a growth in place kind of like a property that would benefit you throughout the course of your entire life.
Mhm.
I don't know the technicalities of how they are going to work, what's the benefits of them, what's not the benefits of them, but from a brief not like a brief understanding of what they're trying to accomplish with this, it's kind of like it's scary, it
Yeah,
is. You don't want to, you think of a 30-year mortgage and you're like, wow, that's a long period of time, especially if you plan on being that specific place for 30 years.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a big commitment.
It is
Yeah.
a big commitment, and I think we're at a point in time where, I don't know anybody, besides like my grandparents, who live in the house that they completely paid off the mortgage over
Exactly.
the 30 years.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people. The people like to move around now, and I think more so now than ever.
Mhm.
Very rarely do you see like someone staying in the same place for a long period of time.
Definitely.
So I
I
think
think-
that contributes to
Yeah,
it.
big thing about it too is it's not attacking the root of the problem.
Exactly.
It's
just
just-
like a band-aid for it.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah. So I don't think it's accomplishing, like, whether good or bad, it's still not getting at the root of the problem of affordability.
Definitely.
In my opinion, like,
Yeah.
it's just creating a
Delay. It's just delaying it.
It allows
different type of
Problem.
way to get into housing, but not addressing the actual root of the problem.
Definitely.
But you had mentioned grants, like government grants for housing.
Yeah.
What do you know about grants? Like, what kind of?
So I know the government mostly offers like grants for like lower income. I have it
Yeah.
written down a little bit. Like they'll increase incentives for builders to say, hey, we need some housing for this certain group of people. These
Mhm.
group of people needs housing. So they'll say, hey, if you want to build it, we'll give you either a tax incentive or
Mhm.
something along them lines to
Mhm.
really push them to make them want to actually do that. Because
Yeah.
like we always talk about in our class and industry, it doesn't make sense to build a lower income house. The most profit is with the higher income luxury homes. That's where your most return is, and that's what one of the problems we have now is we don't have affordable housing for all these people.
Mhm.
So that's definitely a major concern that we have, and that's why sometimes the government can benefit from it by allowing grants and also mortgage rates, like how we were just talking about. Yeah, the mortgage rate is a little bit lower, I guess, but the interest rate would be longer.
Mhm.
So, there's definitely pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
So another thing that it helps out too is like when you have a shift in leadership, the codes can either become more lenient or more strict depending on the administration. Like, yeah, we
Right.
might have, all right, so we need more safety going on. A lot of people are getting hurt. So now there's more regulation and rules to follow discussing safety,
Mhm.
but it also has a benefit to it. So it might cost more a little bit, but it definitely has some benefits to it. And also, one of the other negative effects is during the transition, a lot of builders can get like confused a little bit on what codes are still in effect and what codes aren't. Like, I know there's a lot of talk about the 2018 because in 2021 it's supposed to be
In Pennsylvania.
adapted. Yeah.
Yeah, but they delayed. They pushed it off.
Exactly.
I think
So-
it just got adopted actually.
Did it?
I believe, yeah.
I think it might be.
I just saw something on it yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, I haven't really heard that.
But I know it was supposed to. I think it was supposed to be adopted early this year.
It was. It got
And
delayed. Yeah.
it was like maybe in July or something,
Exactly.
and
So
they
that
pushed it
can-
off. But that'll make it. I think that's gonna make it more expensive probably because
New materials are gonna be
2021 code book is more strict
Green.
than
It's more green.
yeah, it's more green. So a lot of those products and those methods are still more expensive than what was in the 2018 code book.
Exactly, and that kind of rolls right into my next point with how we're seeing all these government tariffs now on the goods.
Mhm.
So that's obviously going to increase prices if you can only get a certain material or supply from out of the country.
Mhm.
So that really does. I mean, it affects the builder up front until they actually sell the property, and then they're just pushing that right down to the consumer,
Mhm.
like everybody does. All the builders do.
Do you think this will lead to more builders using materials that have less or no tariffs on them from America, or do you think they're still going to continue to buy materials that maybe have gone up in price and just pass that additional cost on to the buyer?
So I feel like it really depends. It depends on obviously what the customer wants, the needs of the customer, and what the customer base that they're selling to. If they're just making like a not low income home, but like a more affordable home, obviously they're trying to save as much money as they can. So they're not really worried about too much luxurious material. So they'll just buy locally. And like how we were talking about earlier, how it keeps all the money in America for like the jobs and everything like that. Instead of the money going somewhere else, it keeps it locally. So it benefits us as a whole. It doesn't leave the country. So I feel like that definitely is beneficial. But everything has its pros and cons. So
Do you think one administration like has a greater benefit for the residential construction industry more than another, or they have like the same effect? Like
you're talking about party wise, like
yeah,
Republican, Democrat.
yeah.
Really depends because we see Trump now. He's real big on immigration, so he's deporting a lot of these immigrants out. So that's really having obviously it has an effect on construction because we all seen it before that you see immigrants working and you don't know if they're documented or not. They're over here, and so really it can put a halt on things, but at the same time, it is benefiting Americans because workers it's going to benefit the construction workers because obviously we're keeping the jobs for American people, but at the same time that's going to raise the price for the consumer because now they have to make up for that expense somehow, that increase of expense. So they're just going to pass that right down to the consumer, but. It really just depends how you look at it. Like it depends. Like somebody's gonna have to eat the cost no matter what. It just depends who. So it's just really a flux.
So do you think there is one that's better for the residential construction industry, or are they both just like?
I wouldn't say better. Each one has its own benefits and cons to it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really just what the administration wants to apply to the policies and everything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I just listened to a podcast. It was the president of one of the unions. I forget which. It's the biggest union in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with what that might be called, which union
I'm not
that is.
sure.
But anyways, the president of the union, and the unions tend to be Democrat sided. But so I can see the benefit of unions because even though they tend to be, like I said, Democratic, but their kind of whole goal is to look out for workers and try to get them the highest wages possible.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like they're going to these to big, and they're mostly focused on big corporations, getting
commercial.
Getting workers paid more who work under a corporation or something like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, like you said, there could be, each administration can have good things it's doing or bad things, and then some, if you're a Republican business owner, then you might not like that, or because then you're gonna be losing profits from, because the union is lobbying for your workers to be paid more. So
yeah, so it's always definitely pros and cons, but one thing with the union though, it is a little bit different in residential because instead of a single just a regular average person eating costs, it's more like a big business or somebody is going to have to eat the cost in order to pay the workers. It's not just a regular average American that's having to eat the cost. So it just depends really how you look at it, who you want to benefit. Do you want to benefit the average American or do you want to benefit big business?
Right.
So it really is always a flux to it. But
why do you think a union is more democratic? Because I guess it seems like they come off as less capitalist.
Mhm.
Like capitalist has always been kind of a Republican-sided
Yeah.
thing, and then union is kind of like pushing against that a little bit because it's like, I mean, capitalists, you want to make like the most money you possibly can,
Exactly.
and that's what makes somebody who had nothing become like a multimillionaire or billionaire.
Exactly.
But like, why do you think maybe the Republican side wouldn't like the unions as much?
I feel like they look at it more like a business standpoint. Like, all right, how can we make the most amount of money possible and benefit the economy? And really, like, they kind of push like the worker to the side a little
Yeah.
bit.
They're looking at maybe a bigger
The
picture
bigger
of the
picture.
economy.
Exactly. They're not really looking at this little
Unions
group
just
right here.
focusing on
Exactly. They're worried about the worker.
the
Right.
workers.
Which
yeah.
that's nothing wrong with it. There's obviously beneficial, but it's to a certain extent. Like, okay, yeah, it might help the union, but is it going to benefit the business or economy overall for us to
Right.
pay them this amount?
Right.
So it all just depends on circumstances, honestly. But I have a couple of my buddies that are in the union right now, and they said it's been like jobs have been slowing up a little bit, especially in the city with Trump being in office. And they said, I mean, it's to be expected, you know, because I mean, they definitely would rather have a Democrat in there than a Republican, 100%.
Who?
The union.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. They're mostly Democratic.
Right.
Do you think
So that kind of surprised me.
I mean, Democrats are always for the people though. Like that's really like how they slogan it. Like they present it to themselves. Like they say, like how you were just saying, Republicans more capitalist. The rich get richer. Even
But I
in
feel
some
like
cases it's not true. But
Right. But yeah.
Do you feel like there's the result of immigration is going to negatively impact the new home building industry for more than a short period of time? Like, what do you think the length of that impact will be? If you what do you think?
see, there's pros and cons to it because yes, it might be more beneficial for the home buyer to build, to have like obviously the immigrants are going to be a lot cheaper labor and everything. So that's
How
gonna
long do
cost-
you think the
Probably till the next administration.
Yeah,
if it's
probably.
if
They
it's
keep cracking down,
if
at
it's
least for
Republican
years.
now administration
think-
and it goes to Democrat, then it's gonna last until
let's
that.
say
Because when in the last administration before the current one, that was like the most immigrants coming in than ever in
Never
history.
before, yeah.
yeah, but like not like what do you think the impact is? Like how will production on new homes slow, and to what extent do you think, or do you think it's kind of just a wait and see kind of game?
I feel like it's a wait and see, but I feel like it could also, how you were saying, the median age of construction is 48 or 47. Well, now since all the immigrants are gone, or not all of them, but you know what I'm saying, they're getting rid of a good amount of them. So that means it's going to give more Americans incentives to be in construction because obviously the price is going to go up. You're going to get paid a little more. So it's going to give us an incentive to want to get in construction. That's good for the worker, but at the same time, the home buyer that's buying the house is going to have the cost of the cost of housing is going to be more expensive because they have to pay for that.
I'd argue with that a little bit because all these people who are leaving are they own some of them even own houses, a lot of them rented houses. So I think granted they come from the southern illegal immigrants.
Yeah, a lot of them are Latin American.
They live
Hispanic.
together in high number of persons per household.
Yeah.
But that's still, when you think about all the people being deported, that still is going to create more home availability in the country, whether it's rentals, ownership.
Definitely.
So I think that would also bring the cost down. So maybe, I don't know if it would even out or what the percentage was, but I think that's something that we should look for and try to see, maybe there's a direct correlation to that somewhere in price.
But I think it's kind of hard to know. Like the media makes it seem like this is the most people getting deported in history.
But really,
I'm not sure if that's true because I've heard reports that Obama deported quite a lot.
3 million people it was.
So
So
it's hard to say. To go back to your question earlier, which was about like how is it going to slow down?
There's nothing to gauge it against.
It's
really.
hard to gauge whether it will slow things down because I was in the summer when I was working at Pulte, not exaggerating at all, like the majority of the workers on the site were like illegal. And I know that I speak Spanish and so I'm really good at like building relationships and gaining trust and stuff just from just the personality, but I have and it interests me too, like people interest me and that culture interests me. So like I get to know people, I become friends with them, and then I've asked them, and it's like, and I know what to look for too. Like, so I'm not like making it up, but I know because of conversations I had where like they talked about how they got here, like how they crossed the border, and they would, we would just have genuine conversations during breaks or whatever.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact like the majority of them on those job sites were undocumented, but
was it a lot
we never had anybody get deported who didn't do something wrong. There was one guy, he was a spackle guy, but he had a case because of, I think it was like a DUI related incident, but he had a legitimate incident where he broke the law or something. And one day, like I didn't see him on the job site, but his crew was there, and I was like, hey, what happened to this guy? And they're like, oh, he got deported back to Guatemala. And I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wild. But he was going through a court case, and it's not like ICE came and raided the Pulte job site or whatever.
Definitely.
So it's hard to gauge. Like,
It really
I think
is.
it's a little bit blown up from media, but
It'll be
it's a good
interesting-
question to ask because it could affect the industry.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years and past that, and I guess being able to learn from these kinds of things, these topics, really, especially from if you're going to be a builder or you're going to work for a builder as a manager, I think it's good to be familiar with some of these things. So I think this was a really good opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely a concern that we have to start thinking about addressing it in the future because it's definitely going to come up.
But I think like people like us and middle class Americans are, I think, well, especially in our age group, we're like in the 20s and 30s, are starting to actually, regardless of what political party or administration they follow or like support, I feel like everybody's starting to not just support them blindly, like they're starting to question, like, I don't know, I don't think this administration, even though the ones I support, they're not always like positive for,
Definitely.
say, the middle class American or for residential construction.
Yeah, they all
And
have
that's-
their own.
I think that's at least a good thing that's coming about.
Yeah, people are just 100% siding with it. They're like, they'll see some information, be like, hold on, let me look into that a little more
Right.
before I just totally agree with it.
Right,
Which that's
right.
a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like everybody should be encouraged to do their own research.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Another topic you could talk about that also be affected is environmental energy. So like how we're talking about green building and everything like that. Renewable energy incentives, how we were discussing that earlier, could be one of the things the government offers. Solar credits, heat pump rebates, also carbon emissions could be another one that I've been hearing a lot that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And also the green building certifications like LEED and Energy Star, all those
Mhm.
kind of ones. That's definitely has its pros and cons because it will definitely add cost to construction.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that might draw a customer to that particular building because, all right, I'll pay a little bit more up front now because I know it's going to be more sustainable and I'm not going to have to put as much work into it in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be self-sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And also another one, how we were just talking about immigration, labor force and work policy. So if the large labor pool immigration slows down, it's obviously going to have an effect on construction. It could slow it up a little bit until we get more labor into the field.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how I said earlier, it would attract more workers because a higher pay bracket would be available because of that. But the increased labor cost is just going to get passed right to the consumer, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I was researching about that I found was they also sometimes offer grants and incentives for first-time home buyers. Like I don't know if you guys heard about.
Yeah, which is good. Like that's
Definitely is.
yeah, that's
beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that kind of we see it come and go with different administrations.
Mhm.
I'm not sure off the top of my head what specific ones are available right now, but I have been hearing a lot of chatter about that. Especially we're at that age where you will know people very soon who are buying houses and
Mm-hmm.
kind of moving around. So I think it's good to be familiar with that, and it's not as talked about as it should be, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what would be the latest age you guys would want to be before? Yeah.
It really
Like, do you have an
depends.
age in mind?
I'd like
You'd
to-
be like, man, if I got to this age, like, you'd feel bad about yourself for not having a home by then?
I'd probably
Or would
say
you?
like maybe late 30s, early 40s.
Oh, okay. What's yours?
I'd say probably early 30s. Like in my mind, like
Yeah.
my goals from leaving here, in my mind, realistically, by the time I'm 28, I'd love to at least own a home
Mhm.
by then, preferably even sooner. But it's kind of just like a, you gotta work really hard for that. And
Yeah, but I mean, like, ideally we would buy it as soon as we get out of our parents' house.
yeah,
But like, what like the latest that you'd feel like, okay, I'm
Like, you
doing
feel
something.
like
I'm not
you're
doing.
behind,
Yeah,
you
I'm
feel like
I'm behind. Like I'm not doing
probably
something right.
like 35.
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
for me it'd be like early
Around
30s.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably say a little
Maybe
bit.
even
It really
late 20s.
depends on family too. Like it depends what
Yeah.
goes on with there, because if I don't have a family in the early 30s, what do I really need a whole house for? Like it's just a lot of upkeep, a lot of more
Yeah.
expenses, and I'm
Yeah.
tied down. I'm
Right.
tied there for so long. I put all this money in it.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
I mean, it definitely has its benefits and setbacks, but it also depends at that time. What are the incentives going to be? Are there going to be any incentives to even buy a house, or
Mhm.
what are the mortgage rates going to be then, or and everything like that, interest and all that? That's another thing to think about.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, this was a good discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had.
a great discussion. We talked about a lot of stuff.
Yep. Government administration, contractor licensing.
Change in administration.
Yep.
Yeah.
And government regulations.
How all those things affect prices of homes.
Mhm.
How they affect the people building them and buying them and supplying the materials for them. So yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, we're all
it's a good conversation.
Nice. All right.
That was
all right.
good. See you.
All right,